Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. And yes, today is another lesson in insanity, in the age of madness. So yesterday, I did a very brief video about the neo-Marxist tenant unions that are rising up here in the United States. They look to eliminate private property rights in the United States. And they're starting in major and mid-size U.S. cities all around the United States. And yes, there were some comments in the comment section that alleged that I was making all this information up. And it is absolutely true. In the coming civil conflict, the coming Second Revolutionary War, the Second Civil War that is fastly approaching, these types of organizations are going to be the cause of what is going to happen here in the United States. The elimination of private property will be a step-by-step process. It'll be slight at first. It'll appear as something that could be reasonable. And that what is reasonable will soon turn into something that is completely unreasonable, followed by insanity and the age of madness. Now, what I'm about to show you are posters of these organizations demanding the elimination of private property rights. Look, if you attempt to deny a property owner what he is asking for rent when you agreed to that rent, that is a horrendous problem if you were a property owner. But let me show you some of these. Here's one. This is the Rochester Citywide Tenant Union. Rise up for renter power. And notice the fist. Where else do you see this at? BLM, Antifa, all these radical far-left organizations that are being funded by the Democratic National Committee, by George Soros, Open Societies, the World Economic Forum. They're all providing assets, treasure, money, capital to these types of organizations for some reason. Here's another one. You can barely, this is difficult to see. This is the Sacramento Tenant Union. Again, the red hand, the black hand coming together. Very similar to what you're seeing here. This is Rochester, Sacramento. The next, Oklahoma Tennis Union. Look, the red fist. Very similar to what you'll see in these Antifa riots. They probably use the same graphic designer. It's the same ideology. And then finally, the PSTU. I think this is Puget Sound in Washington. So we've gone from coast to coast to the center of the United States. They're all over the place. And then what I'll read you now is one that comes from Kansas City. And it reads as following. And this is called the Escalation Plan. Jade and some of the tenants in her building met as a small group and defined their demands, i.e. a 3-month rent suspension. Then they gathered signatures on a demand email and sent it to their landlord. Having not heard back from the landlord, they set up a Facebook page for their tenant union. and name shamed the landlord on social media for their lack of action. They also created an online petition and got hundreds of signatures. The landlord contacted Jade and her neighbors and refused their demands. So Jade led the effort to contact a city council person, obviously a left-wing activist that was elected in that position. Contact a city council person to stand in solidarity with the tenant union. This council person wrote their own letter to the landlord. Again, this is the elimination of private property rights. You must give me 3 months of rent, even though you have a mortgage and financing on this apartment building. The tenants then organized a mass call-in to the landlord's office and cell phone and sent complaint letters to the charities and church the landlord worked with. Again, the landlord refused their demands. So Jade and her neighbors planned an action to circle the landlord's house with cars and contacted the local news. Now, this is where it starts to get violent, because inherently, when you get these far left, radical left-wing groups that surrounds people's homes, and these are active members of Antifa and some very militant organizations. That initial peaceful call to surround a home then starts with blood being thrown on the home, the damage of property, and then finally, outright home invasion. Again, the landlord refused their demand, so Jade and her neighbors planned an action and circled the landlord's house. Under political, social, and economic pressure and threats of violence, the landlord responded to the tenants' demands, and Jade and her neighbors won a 3-month rent suspension. And that is the game plan all these organizations are operating under right now. Get free rent. The landlord, the property owner, then can't make his payments. And then what happens? Well, it's a cascade effect from there. But these exist. They're growing. They're getting bigger. And this is just not the only issue. Obviously, there are many, many other issues with this far left attempt to destroy the republic. But it's happening. It's ongoing. And we'll continue to cover. Thank you for joining us today. Another lesson in insanity in the age of madness. Have a good day.